Emily Neumann, managing partner of Reddy Neumann PC, and with me today is Stephen Brown, also a partner at Reddy Neumann PC. Here at Reddy Neumann, we help companies navigate complex U.S. immigration law with confidence. And today we want to talk about the EB-1C category of the green card. It's often referred to as a fast-track green card because there's no perm labor certification requirement. And with more and more people getting stuck in the EB-2 and EB-3 backlogs, a lot of people are trying to figure out, how can I qualify for EB-1? On top of that, we have a lot more flexibility with the people being able to work from home, and that gives the potential for managers to be able to manage workers remotely, possibly even from outside of the country. So how does that work for EB-1? Well, first let's talk about what exactly does EB-1C mean?
Right, so yeah, EB-1C is a first preference green card category on the employment based side. So this is for managers and executives of multinational companies. So entities that have offices in the US and overseas could potentially petition in their managers and executives for an EB-1C green card. Unlike EB-1A and EB-1B, which you could self-petition, EB-1C does still require you to have an employer sponsor you, since it is focused on the employer, being a manager with the employer.
Okay, so the U.S. company has to file it, they're sponsoring it, but they skip the perm labor certification. Right. Now, what companies qualify for this? You mentioned there has to be a company abroad and a company in the U.S.?
Correct, yeah. So there has to be what's called a qualifying relationship between the foreign entity and the U.S. entity. And this can be branches, subsidiaries, affiliates. It can't just be, I worked remotely in the UK for the U.S. company, do I qualify? You would have to work for a branch in the UK of the company, of ABC Corp, that's also in the U.S. So again, branch, subsidiary, affiliate, entities between the two.
Okay, so if I'm a manager now in the U.S., does that mean I qualify?
Potentially. Not just being a manager in the U.S., that's not going to be the only way you qualify. You have had to have worked in a managerial role for the qualifying entity abroad for 1 year within the last 3. So if you're in the U.S. with the same company, it'd be 1 year within your last 3 prior to entering the U.S. If you're outside the U.S., it's just 1 year within the last 3 calendar years.
Okay, so I had to be a manager executive outside the U.S. for at least 1 year, coming to the U.S., then work as a manager, being offered a job as a manager executive here, and the two companies have to have that qualifying relationship. What exactly counts as a manager? Like, do I have to have a certain number of direct reports and subordinates?
So that's always the question we get for EB-1C is, what's the number? And there isn't a magical number. It's really going to depend on the company, how it's situated, what your managerial focus is on, your group. You do have to be managing professionals. So you can't just be managing anybody. It has to be typically people with a bachelor's degrees that are professionals.
And, it's not enough for the position title to be manager. They actually do look at what your job duties are, and they want to see that you're spending a majority of your time actually managing people or managing a function of the company rather than doing the function or actually producing a product or a service. So they really do look at those managerial duties and figure out, is this person spending the majority, at least 51% of their time, managing people, doing performance reviews, having those one-on-ones. Can they hire, can they fire, can they promote, can they demote? That kind of thing is what they're looking for in terms of job duties. But what if I don't actually manage people and instead I manage a function? Can I still qualify?
Yeah, potentially, right? So there is what's called you have 2 types of managers. You have people managers, which I think is what people are most commonly familiar with, but you could be what's called a functional manager. So here where you're managing a core or essential function of the business, that it's an established part of the business, that you are, and again, the big focus is going to be managing the function and not doing the function. And it's integral to the business, and that you have discretion over that function. So you're setting the policy for the function, you're directing how that team operates. You have discretion over day-to-day of the function, not necessarily the people. So you could be a director of architecture, let's say, and you're just not maybe doing the managing of the architects, but the overall department, if you will.
Okay. Okay, now this sounds a lot like an L1A, which is for managers or executives to come into the U.S. based on that qualifying relationship. But do I have to only be on L1A to qualify for EB-1C?
No, it is a common misconception, right? Everybody thinks I've got to be on an L1A to do an EB-1C, and you don't have to. You could be on any visa category. You don't even have to be in the U.S. to petition for an EB-1C. So if you're on an H-1B and you otherwise qualify, you can file for an EB-1C. If you're outside the U.S., you can qualify.
Now, is there a way, let's say I'm already here in the U.S. and I didn't necessarily work for a company abroad, but I'm here now and my company that I work for now does have a branch or subsidiary or affiliate abroad. Can I go back and work there for a year and remotely manage the same team and then come back into the U.S. and get the EB-1C?
Yeah, I think this goes back to what you brought up at the beginning. With more companies understanding flexibility in the workplace and working remote, you absolutely can plan ahead to do an EB-1C, let's say in the future, even from the U.S. So, talking with your company, ensuring that qualifying relationship is there, ensuring that you're actually going to be doing a EB-1C managerial role, because it's not just saying I'm a manager. You could go work now for that foreign entity abroad, still manage the same team, but being on, working for that foreign entity, and then apply for, do that for the 1 year and apply for the EB-1C.
Now, a lot of people might already have their process going on in EB-2 or EB-3. They went through the labor certification, they've got their I-140 approved, and now we're talking about EB-1, which generally has better cutoff dates in the visa bulletin. Do I start over from scratch if I switch into EB-1, or do I get to keep my priority date?
No, the good thing is amongst EB-1, EB-2, and EB-3, you can port or move your priority date that you already have over to any of those categories. So if you have an EB-2, EB-3 priority date of, let's say, 2014, you can now take that 2014 priority date to your EB-1C I-140. It's fairly simple to do. It's very common to port your priority date, so then you could use that priority date, get your I-140, and leverage that into a 485 filing, like you said, potentially sooner because you have more fortuitous filing dates.
Yeah, and we're seeing more and more people now almost kind of taking a step back from their U.S. career, going abroad for a year, and then coming back to be able to retain that old EB-2, EB-3 priority date and file an EB-1 so that they can actually file their 485 much sooner, because EB-1 definitely is usually current. It's backlogged at the moment for some people, but it's certainly better than the EB-2, EB-3 cutoff dates. So if that's something that you're interested in or want to know more about, feel free to reach out to either of us or any of our attorneys here at RN Law Group. You can go to rnlawgroup.com for more information.